Cincinnati's back in the orange and black. See the natty on the map, baby, tell me where you at. In the jungle, who they bringing it back to the jungle every game day. Yeah, the jungle's back, got the natty pack in the orange and black.
Welcome, everybody, to the Cincinnati Bengals Weekly Show on the Grizzly Truth Sports Network. Cincinnati Bengals Weekly Show is brought to you by mybookie.ag. To find out more about them, go to thegrizzlytruth.com, click on the banner at the top of the page, and it will take you and give you a 100% cash back bonus up to $300 on your first deposit. I am your co-host for the Cincinnati Bengals Weekly Show, Mike Goodpaster, and right now I would like to welcome in, first up, from Cincy Jungle, Matt Minich. How you doing, Matt?
I'm good, Mike. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great because Bobby Hart may not start now. And our guest tonight is, I think, really, and we made a joke when we started this, but I think he's as good a coach as you'll find in high school sports in the greater Cincinnati area. But now he's old and he had to retire. Ty Robbins, how you doing, Ty?
I'm doing great. I'm ready to talk Bengals.
All right. So when we start off, when we go into this draft, I think it's obvious that they needed offensive line help to replace Bobby Hart, and they needed linebacker help. And I think they got this here, Matt.
Yeah, I think so. First of all, it is obvious to us that they needed offensive line help. I questioned going into it if it was obvious to them.
Me too.
When they signed Bobby Hart, I was wondering if they thought they were maybe not good because they obviously lack depth. But I really didn't think they were going to go off at the tackle in round one. Jonah Williams happened to be the top guy on my Bengals board at that moment, and apparently was on theirs too, and I was pleasantly surprised by that. So, and then I think Jermaine Pratt was a really good pickup in the third round. He was a guy that on his film grade, I had him. I had him in the same level as Devin Bush, just looking on his film grade. And, when I went through things and adjusted a little bit for what Bush was able to do in the combine, not looking purely at film, Pratt ended up getting bumped down, but I still had him as one of my top-ranked linebackers and a guy that I thought would have been a good pick where they were picking in the second round. And they get him in the third, so that was definitely a big time pickup for them.
All right, now when I look at this, Ty, they picked Jonah Williams first. I was worried that they would go with Dwayne Haskins, and I know a lot of fans are upset that there's no Dwayne Haskins, led by Chick Ludwig, who Chick usually listens to this show. So, Chick, you're nuts. Dwayne Haskins was not the answer here. I don't want a total rebuild because there's enough talent here where this team can compete for a playoff spot this year if they drafted well. And I think Jonah Williams was a great start on that.
Oh,
yeah,
I agree.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Ty.
I agree. I look at it like this. Everybody wanted Haskins, and I'm an Ohio State fan. I really enjoyed watching him. But you got to build your line. Everybody knows that, games are won in the trenches, and we've been hurting there. In the last 3 years, we really haven't been able to get a running game together. It's because we got rid of Ziegler, we got rid of Whitworth, we brought in, because of Paul Alexander, Cedric Owehi and Jake Fisher, and they couldn't do the job. So now we're sitting back with these huge holes, and you've got these guys that really shouldn't be out there playing. And so if you're going to be successful, then you got to build the line. So if you go get a quarterback like Haskins, he's going to be sitting the bench. And even if he does get in, you're setting him up for failure because you have no line. Here you have, Andy Dalton's he's got a 2-year contract. You build up your line the way you want it. You bring in guys to compete and to go after a quarterback next year if you need to. So I thought it was a great move. Not a popular move, but from a football sense, a great move.
Yeah, and when I look at this, Matt, what I see is people are upset about the Drew Sample second-round pick, but I would think this. If you moved Drew Sample and made him the third-round pick and made Jermaine Pratt the second-round pick, everybody would be happy.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that, and I think there's you look at people complaining about there not being a receiver in the draft as well. If you say that you traded the second round pick and pick up a couple third, fourth round picks, and you put Sample and lost the name Stanley Morgan Jr. into those slots, it's a pretty good looking draft, and nobody bats an eye at taking Stanley Morgan Jr. in the fourth round, except apparently the entire NFL that didn't draft him even in the seventh round. So yeah, I mean, they came up with some good guys, and I think it's tough because I mentioned Morgan, Emmanuel Hall from Missouri, I believe, went undrafted as well. Like there were some guys who people were pretty high on who didn't get drafted at all. And Drew Sample is a guy that people liked, I think, but nobody really saw him as a day two guy. And the fact of the matter is, we can say all we want, and you hear some leaks from NFL people, and there's people like me that on the internet that watch as much film as we can and do our best with it. But at the end of the day, we don't know what those NFL teams are looking at, and Sample might have been a guy that wasn't going to make it to the Bengals in the third. There could have been a few other teams ready to go on him. So. It's hard to predict that, and it's one of those things where you're like, okay, well, I don't love that pick, but let's put a pin in it and see what he does when we get into August and September.
Yeah, and I think the big question here with that is this, Ty, and that's with Drew Sample. We've got a new coaching staff with Taylor, and if this was Bill Belichick that was doing this, nobody would question it. So I think the big question is, does Taylor know what he's doing? So we have to go by the fact that I think that he did get to pick the players he wanted here, and for some reason he thinks Sample fits what he wants to do. So I think this is more of as fans, it's just time to be quiet and see what happens. At least it's not Marvin.
I agree. I like the Drew Sample pick. I think Coach Taylor says, hey, I'm going to set the precedence right now. I'm going to build a line. I'm going to have a blocking tight end. In fact, he was the highest rated blocking tight end in the draft. And we're going to run the ball. We're going to run the ball, and it's going to set things up. And like I said, we haven't had that in Cincinnati where, last year Mixon's getting hit 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage a lot of times. So I think you have this guy in. He's the highest rated blocker. He played hockey prior to this. He's in a system where at Washington where, they go to the receivers. They got Gaskin. So they don't throw to him. But I watched him, and he can catch. So I think with some development, you're going to see him, maybe third down. That's who you go to, or he blocks. I mean, I think he's going to be as, a contributor right away. So, I mean, people are going to say what they're going to say. I agree with Matt. Had they switched that pick, nobody, and you, Mike, nobody would have said anything, really.
Yeah. So, when we move on to the third round, the Jermaine Pratt pick, Ty, that's one that Matt said he had him graded about with Devin Bush. So did I. I thought Pratt was almost as good as the other ones. To get him in the third round is great. He's not super fast, but he is a thumper in the middle, and by no means is he slow. I think this is a great pickup, and the best thing about this pick is if Marvin Lewis would have picked him, he would have sat him on the bench for at least a year before giving him a chance to play. I think Pratt's a guy that is going to start immediately with the Bengals.
Yeah, I think he's a thumper. He's gonna thump some guys coming in. He's got to put pressure on the quarterback. Last year, our biggest problem is we had nobody could cover tight ends or, 5-10 yard routes. So these guys are just killing us at the linebacker position. So I think he comes in. His only question was injuries. Can he last the season? But I think he'll come in for Vontaze. Hopefully he lasts the season.
All right, and Matt, when I look at this, in the sixth round, they took Deshaun Davis from Auburn, who was another linebacker. I think height is an issue there for him, but, I mean, he hits people. He's a thumper. I think there's a chance you can see both of these guys on the field opening day.
I don't know about Davis. The athletic numbers are a concern, and that's coming from me, who is still pretty high on Mac Wilson. So just the overall athleticism is concerning. It's a little bit of a disappointing after the Pratt pick because Davis really kind of fits the big, not that athletic linebacker that you had been seeing with the Bengals that we were hoping that we could get away from when you pick a former safety like Pratt. I'm not huge on Davis. Some of the positives. He reminds me a little bit of Hardy Nickerson in that
senior, right?
No, junior, unfortunately.
Oh,
and that he seems to have a lot of the intangibles. He's the guy that's setting up the defense at Auburn. They call him a coach on the field. Everybody loves him there. But I just don't know physically if he can do what he needs to do.
Yeah, so that means there's a good chance he's going to start, right? Because there's nobody else here. That's what I meant by that. I didn't mean he was a great pick. I just mean that it's kind of everybody else sucks, so he's got a shot. The fourth round pick, Ryan Finley, quarterback out of NC State. I love this pick. When I watched him, I actually graded him as the second best quarterback in a draft. He makes great decisions. I think he really has good ball security. He's kind of like Andy Dalton Jr., Matt.
Yeah, I can see where you say that. I think it's first of all trading up in the fourth round to almost the beginning of the fourth round to get him. I'm really impressed with that. It was the first of a couple times they traded up in the fourth round. And I believe I saw a tweet from, I don't know if it was Hobson or Demmer or one of those guys that said that the Bengals had never traded up more than once in a draft before. So
they've only done it 5 times in history, from what I read.
Oh, well, there you go. The fact that they're seeing people, they're understanding they have all those 6-round picks, and they're using that capital to go up and get the guys they want. That's impressive because it shows that there's a difference in philosophy, that they're willing to do things like that is positive, regardless of who the player is. Finley was not at the top of my board at the time. I had a couple of quarterbacks that I like better. But I admire that they said, no, let's go get our guy, and they were going to sit there and say, okay, well, if we end up getting Minshew, that's good enough for us. They went up and they got their guy. So I appreciate that.
Okay.
I think he does a lot of things really well, and he's super smart with the ball. He knows how to manipulate a defense. He, uses his eyes well, understands the adjustments defenses make to motion, things along those lines. Real experienced guy, 3-year starter, graduated before he even got to NC State. He was a graduate transfer from Boise. He's an old guy. He's a super senior. He's a 6-year senior after a medical and a traditional redshirt at Boise. So, good having like a mature guy who understands some things and not one of these 1-year starters coming in.
Yeah, and Ty, you're a guy that took at least 6 years to get out of college. What's your take on Ryan Finley?
Ryan, I like this pick. I mean, he got the highest on the Wonderlic test. He got a 43, so I don't know if you put any stock in that. But, I mean, he's a smart guy. He's 25. He's been in several different programs, which tells me he can pick up the offense. He's accurate with his arm. His decision-making is pretty good. So, and he's 6'4". Now you have a line. All your linemen are 6'4", 6'5". He's tall enough to see over the line and make those decisions. And if you have a great pocket, he's going to, do some damage. And then, like, if you got solid running backs, it's going to help him along. So I'm real excited about see what he can do, because I thought that was a good pick. And I agree with Matt. I was glad that we moved up to get our guy who we want. You know what I mean? I think these new coaches, in fact, the Bengals have more coaches than any other team in the NFL. So when people are, judging and saying these different things, I mean, these guys know what they're talking about. So they see everybody's a quarterback coach, from Taylor to the offensive coordinator to, you know what I'm saying? So they know quarterbacks. So I say let them pick their guy, and if this is their guy, let's go with him and see what he can do.
Well, it's debatable whether they can coach or not. We'll figure that out week 1 or at the end of the first season. In the 4th round, number 125, they also selected Renell Wren, defensive tackle from Arizona State. What do you think here, Matt Minich? I'm not overly impressed with this pick. I think the guy's either a boom or a bust. What do you think?
Yeah, I wasn't huge on it. I mean, the fact is they have Billings, they have Glasgow. They could use another guy on the interior outside of Geno Atkins who can pass rush. And I think I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think Wren only had maybe 2 or 3 sacks at most in the season. So that's not who he is. For the most part, the guys that can do that from the inside, those guys went fast. I want to say, I believe Daniel Wise was still around at that point, and that he had maybe 5 or 6 sacks in a season. But outside of that, your options at defensive tackle were more the traditional nose tackle. He's got some athletic traits that maybe he could develop that, but yeah, I definitely think a boom or bust from that standpoint. And I don't know. I mean, he's a 4th round pick too, so you think you're going to keep that guy around, but with Glasgow and Billings, I'm not even really sure where he fits in the roster.
All right, what's your take on him, Ty?
I'm not sold on him at all. I think out of all the picks, he's probably one that, he's going to have to sell me on the field, because I went, I didn't know much about him, so I went and looked at his tape. In fact, I went back to look at it again after I heard the coaches saying, he's got long arms, he's 320, he's 6'5", he's got a stuffed metal. But the problem I have with him is he doesn't shed blocks well. So he'll bull rush you, and he might get back to the quarterback. But I saw a couple times where the running back just went right by him, and he was so concentrated on the offensive tackle or whoever was at center, whoever was in front of him, that the guy just ran by and got 10 yards. So I think he doesn't spot the ball well, and maybe this is something that coaches can bring in and correct. So that's what I'm hoping for. To shred the ball, get to the quarterback, or find the person with the ball and tackle him. It's not hard, but hopefully, this isn't a bust for us. It makes me nervous because I like Billings better than him.
You can live with a 4th round bust better than a 1st or 2nd round bust, which is what we've been dealing with. 5th round, Matt. Michael Jordan. I know that you are a Buckeyes fan, if I remember correctly. What do you think of Michael Jordan?
Again, like I wasn't expecting Williams to go around 1. I wasn't expecting them to draft a guard at all. They didn't lose any guards. They lost a few tackles. Lost in quotations with.
Well, it is debatable whether they had any guards last year too, though, Matt.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But they went out and they got John Miller. And I was worried that they thought that was good. So it is good to see them making a move here, trying to bring in somebody else. Jordan's a guy who played with Billy Price and then took his job. So there's some position versatility there. Like we had last year with Hopkins, backup guard, backup center. He can do that as well. The communication aspect between him and Price is a factor. Not a huge one, but it's always good having a little bit of continuity with some of those guys. So it's a good player. I honestly think he's more naturally a guard. With Price there, you're probably not going to move your round 1 guy. I think that's where he ends up playing. But it's a good pickup. I don't know what we're going to see out of him, in the near future. But I think he's a guy that has a good chance of making the roster and maybe getting in there at some point this year.
All right. You don't think he's soft? Because he looks like a catcher to me when he blocks. He catches people. I think he's soft. I don't like him.
I thought he looked a little bit more aggressive, honestly, when he was playing guard. If you go back to his previous film, I think he looked a little better there.
I did. He still doesn't look mean, though. We need mean guys. I like mean guys.
That's a little bit more, Price's MO.
Really? Because he didn't look that mean laying on his back or watching people run by him last year. I think it's possible that maybe they drafted Jordan as an insurance policy if Price doesn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, it gives them the flexibility to be able to, think that way and give him a couple years and see what they want to do with the extension, with the extra year on Price as a first rounder. So yeah, absolutely.
All right, Ty, what do you think about Michael Jordan? Is he soft or not?
I don't know. I know he's big. He's 6'6", 312, but I'm with you. He doesn't get low enough, and maybe that's just at center because I didn't see him at guard. Maybe he plays better at guard. But I think.
But one thing we do know is this, Ty: if you're mean no matter where you play.
That's true. Or you don't take plays off, and that can hurt you too. So especially at this level. So, I think he has some technique stuff that the coaches got to work with, but I don't know. I didn't see it that often, but everybody at Ohio State was saying he fires off the ball and he's the hardest hitting lineman they have. So I guess we'll see when the pads come on in preseason, see if he gets, bull rush back or if he fires off and hits somebody, and that'll determine where he goes. But I'm not sold on him yet either. I'm with you, Mike, on that. So we'll see how he does in the preseason.
All right, let's go to running backs. And I think they made a couple really interesting picks here. Of course, Mark Walton, always in trouble, always arrested, not here anymore. Travion Williams from Texas A&M, running back. And Rodney Anderson, running back from Oklahoma. We'll start off with Ty here. What do you think? Because I think out of the two of these guys, at least one of them is going to be able to do a better job than what Mark Walton did.
Yeah, that's not too hard to fill those shoes, huh?
Yeah.
Travion, I liked. I thought he was, a fast back, a little lighter. You can throw him out there, catch passes out. He's going to. I think with the line is big and him is small, he's going to get through the line. He's going to get some yards for you. Rodney, I think, was a steal, actually. Everybody was concerned about his health, but if he's up and running, we're gonna keep. I think we really will keep four backs, and we'll just rotate them and give Mixon a break and just get some fresh set of legs in there to pound on a lot of these teams. I noticed as we were building up our offense, I noticed like teams like the Steelers were getting linebackers, even Cleveland with Mack Wilson, because they know we're going to run. We tell you what we're going to do, and this is what we're going to do. And so, it showed with all the with the two great running backs they got. So we'll see. I'm excited if these guys block, and these guys are going to get yards, and they're going to be playmakers.
All right. The thing to me, Matt, is this. People forget, in 2017, Rodney Anderson was the starter over Joe Mixon. If he's healthy, that could be a really good pick. But we don't know if he's healthy because 3 of his 4 seasons have ended on a season-ending injury.
Yeah, I mean, he was an excellent player at that point. And that's the thing is that, they do have Mixon. So they're going to be good there. I think it's really interesting taking these two guys. So to me, it's not just that they played in the same system, in the same backfield at Oklahoma, but Rodney Anderson and Joe Mixon, physically nearly identical, in terms of height and weight. Both are excellent, patient zone runners. Both are good receivers out of the backfields. Both are somewhat of a liability in pass protection. So it's interesting. It's like it's like a cookie cutter version of Joe Mixon. Whereas with Travion Williams, very similar to Giovanni Bernard. I think he's maybe like 5 pounds heavier, but has some similar traits. Runs kind of high, which is odd for a guy who's 5'9". But you watch him, and I grew up in Minnesota. It reminds me of Robert Smith, from Ohio State as well. Adrian Peterson, those types of guys were 6 foot tall and ran tall. But he kind of has a little bit of a different style of running. But just like Bernard, he's a guy, excellent receiver out of the backfield. Did some really nice things there. Good shifty runner, and excellent. Probably the best in this draft in pass protection. So it's interesting because you see last year Mixon goes down. They try to do Mixon stuff with Bernard. It doesn't really work. They try to do anything with Mark Walton. That doesn't work. So now they're in a situation where I think you can make Giovanni Bernard a bigger part of this offense, and even use Mixon and Bernard at the same time, and mix in these other 2 guys and realize that if Mixon goes down, you've got Anderson who you can put in, and I don't think, even though you're going to see more, Bernard might be the 2 back, the number 2 back, but if Mixon goes down, it's Anderson that you're going to see, and you'll see very little more of Bernard. And the same thing with Bernard. He goes down. It's not Anderson that gets the bump. It's Williams, who maybe isn't even active every single week. But when Bernard goes down, it would be him that would come in because that's the guy that they're going to trust in pass protection. Might be able to do some receiving things that I'm hoping they're going to be doing a little bit more of with Bernard this year. So I kind of look at it. It's almost like there's 2 separate positions, and we've got a 2 deep at both of those spots right now with these guys.
All right, Matt. And once again, we have an issue with you only being 34 years old, and you talk about your youth when Robert Smith was the running back for the Vikings. When I was a kid, Chuck Foreman was the running back for the Vikings. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Interesting story. I went to Vikings training camp once, and it was the year they got Herschel Walker, and I waited in line for like an hour to get Herschel Walker's autograph. And then I'm walking out to the parking lot, and I bump into Chris Carter, who had just gotten to Minnesota. He was a bust in Philadelphia, and literally nobody was looking for his autograph. My dad knew who he was because he was an Ohio State guy. So we did nothing and got Chris Carter's autograph, and now he's in the Hall of Fame. And Herschel Walker, great college football player, but not the NFL player that Chris Carter was.
No, but it also makes me feel bad that you were. How old were you when you saw Herschel Walker?
6 or 7, probably. 6 or 7.
That's sickening. See, me and Ty were like in our 40s back then when Herschel Walker was playing, right, Ty?
That's right.
Come on, Ty. You told us you were a comedian. You got to tell a joke at some point.
Well, I have no joke, but I do. If you guys know Mike Brown, and you have any pull, I would like him to bring back the real chicken fingers. Because every time I go to the stadium, I buy those cheap $18 chicken fingers.
Why are you buying $18 chicken fingers?
I'm hungry, Mike. I'm hungry.
Eat before you go to the game, Ty.
I know, but then I get there, and then 3 years ago, they got rid of the real chicken fingers. Matt, can you make anything happen? You have any pull at the Bengals?
I have absolutely nothing to do with any of that.
All right, let's go to the final pick.
I return my emails.
Let's go to the final pick. Jordan Brown, cornerback out of South Dakota State. I think he's got great size to match up NFL receivers. I think this guy's got a real chance to make the roster, at least a practice squad, Matt.
See, this is an interesting pick too. It can, the concern about it is that they do have a lot of depth at corner. And they went out and they got Webb presumably to replace Denard, and then they were able to re-sign Denard. They've got Phillips from last year that they drafted in the 5th round, and they've got Devontae Harris, who they took before him last year, who spent most of last year on IR. So we all forgot about him. Actually, I believe Devontae Harris played at Illinois State, another Missouri Valley Conference team, just like South Dakota State. So Jordan Brown does some really good things. Really, if you watch the Senior Bowl practice, he did some excellent things, particularly in the one-on-one drills, the man coverage drills throughout the week. He got beat for, I believe, 2 touchdowns in the game. So that hurts a little bit when you see that in live action, especially for a guy coming from an FCS school.
Yeah, but they've kept Dre Kirkpatrick around forever, giving up 2 touchdown passes a game. So I figured he could just fill in for Dre. If Dre goes down, Jordan Brown can do the same thing Dre does.
Well, he'll have to work on dropping interceptions then to get to Dre's level. But,
Dre got that pick 6 against Denver on a Monday night that one time, and we won a game. Don't forget that.
That's true.
All right.
Never forget. But Jordan Brown does some really good things, though. I think he's got a shot. It's just that is a deep position. It's going to be interesting to see what happens.
All right. So when we wrap this up, Ty, what's your general feel for this team? We're, about 2 months away from camp, somewhere around there. Do you think this team's headed in the correct direction? Are you positive? Put it like that.
I am. I'm not positive, but it's all going to depend on if Taylor and the coaching staff, their vision of having a offensive line that's powerful enough to support the run, which will open up, the passing game. Hopefully our guys can catch when it's.
Hey, real quick, Ty, you have a fan, Jedediah Washam. He says, lay off my social studies teacher. He is a comedian, and chicken fingers shouldn't be $18.
That's true. See?
There you go.
Boy, they shouldn't be. Thanks, Jedi.
Is it Jedi? I can't read it. It looks like Jedediah.
I call him Jedi. I know, but I called him Jedi in class back in the day. He graduated.
Oh,
great guy.
Okay.
I think the Bengals were. I think they're going to be healthy this year. Hopefully, I don't know. Last year was crazy. I didn't think of another NFL team that had as many injuries, ending season injuries as the Bengals did. It was weird. You're down at the stadium, you look across, and half the team are in their sweats. All the backups are playing. It was almost like a preseason game. So hopefully everybody, Lawson comes out, takes care of business, and all these guys come back from injury and they're ready to go, and we can have a healthy season. So I don't know if, since they got new trainers, if that'll have some play into what goes on and they train differently. I don't know, but I think if they're healthy, they're going to be pretty tough. So it'll be interesting when they roll into Seattle, because that'll be a test. It's West Coast. It's a long flight. It's a tough team, and they better be ready to come out, because Seattle's going to come out and be ready to punch them in the mouth. So we'll see. We'll see what these running backs can do, and if Taylor's vision is
all right,
what he had in mind.
Matt Minich, final thoughts?
I'm optimistic, and I think after so many years of the same, it was good to see them trading around, them doing some things, being aggressive with some of that stuff, and taking some picks that I wasn't expecting. So for now, even some of the picks that I'm not huge on, I'm waiting to see, and see if Taylor and the staff can earn my trust with these picks, and maybe we'll be a little bit less critical in the future.
Right.
But I like that. I like that it's different. It's a good sign that it is different, and that even we got a new coaching staff, and in the draft we're seeing some changes, and it's not just the Mike Brown show there, and that clearly the mistakes of the past weren't all on Duke Tobin, who it's pretty well respected around the league. And so it's good to know that that was being influenced by other sources, and hopefully some of those things have changed.
All right. I would like to say this. I'm 50 years old, and in those 50 years, there's been a total of, I think, maybe 3 seasons where the Bengals won a playoff game. So I'm not optimistic. I'm just not. When they win the Super Bowl, then I'll become optimistic again. But until then, I just am what I am, as Popeye would say, and that's all that I am. I basically had my heart and my spirit broken when Jeremy Hill fumbled the ball, and I'm still wondering why Marvin Lewis didn't have Gio Bernard in, who protected the ball much better during his career as a Bengal than Jeremy Hill. So, yeah, I have a hard time letting things go. But I do find it soothing, the fact that the AAF hired Marvin Lewis to be an announcer, and then the league folded. So that makes me feel better. All right, guys. We're going to wrap it up. Former Bengal linebacker Joe Kelly, number 58, couldn't make it tonight. Hopefully he will be back with the next show. And Jedediah, I would, he says kudos for pronouncing my name correctly right off, by the way. Never happens. Jedediah, that's why I'm a professional at this. And that's why Ty is a social studies teacher.
That's true.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap the show up. We'll be back in a few weeks. Make sure you go check out mybookie.ag. Also, another sponsor that we just added during the show, Seat Giant. So make sure you check out Seat Giant, where you can go on with the I'm kidding, too, like 10 minutes into the show. But the Seat Giant promo code LEGEND to get, I don't know what the discount is, because he just sent it to me wanting to do it, and I said, all right. But you'll get a discount if you put Legend in there. So if you want to get tickets to a Bengals game, you get preseason tickets, because they're usually like $6. And with 10% off, you're only paying $5.40. Pretty good job of math there, wasn't it, Ty?
That's perfect.
That's perfect. And that's from a social studies teacher.
I must have loved my Chris Carter story. He instantly wanted to sponsor.
Yeah, it probably was the Chris Carter story. You're correct. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. I want to remind you, you can hear all of our shows in podcast form on Zeno Live Radio. You can hear us on Barn Burner in Canada. You can hear us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, and 227 other platforms now that I do not have time to read off. And you can hear me again tonight with Jeremiah Pricer, with special guest Daniel Cisneros, who wrote the best-selling book Matt Tales. It's the Inside Boxing Daily Show. We'll talk a little boxing news. We'll talk about his upcoming book, Matt Tales 2. So we're going to wrap it up. For Matt Minich, Ty Robbins, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.